Okay, we're up to the very end of Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, the last two words. The truth is, this is in the middle of a bit of a cheshbon, so just to try to finish up to the Mishnah. The Gemara had said that there was a Gzeir Shava. How do you know that the Toida had 40 loaves? 10 were chametz and 30 were matzah. We said the 10 loaves of chametz had 10 isaron. Each loaf was an isaron of flour. And then the same 10 isaron for the 30 loaves of matzah. So how do you know that the 10 loaves of chametz get an isaron each? So we said it's a gzeir shava. It says the word truma over here, and it says the word truma by shtei alechem. Just like the shtei alechem is a isaron each, so too the loaf of the toida chametz is in isaron each. Okay, Shine. So that we've proven that the 10 loaves of chametz of Taida get an Isaron each with a total of 10 Isaron. So says the Gemara, Amemar, Tamalomer Tiena. My Tamalomer, how do you see that in the word Tiena, that each loaf that is a total of 10? Where do you see in the word Tiena? I mean, you just used to like drushes, just says Tiena. So where do you see in the word Tiena that there should be 10 Isaron? So says the Gemara, Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi, Tiena ksiv. There's an extra yud. The extra yud is 10 Isaron. Okay. So says the Gemara, Ema Asara Kapizi. The extra yud just tells you that there's a 10 units. How do you know that it's an isaron of flour? Where in the word tiena does it say isaron? It just says 10. Maybe it's 10 cups, 10 pounds, 10 ounces. So says the Gemara, very simple. Well, the context of the pasuk is always about an isaron. Yes, it doesn't say the word isaron in the word tiena, but we're talking about isaron. So mistama, if it's 10 isaron. Okay, so I told you, we saw in the Mishnah, that there's 10 isaron for the 10 chametz, and then 10 isaron for the 30 matzah. The 30 matzah because there's 3 different types of matzah, as we'll see in a moment. 10 for chametz, 10 for the 30 loaves of matzah. Now we've proven that there's 10 isaron for chametz because it's learned out from the shtei alechem. Now we have to now prove that there's 10 isaron by the matzah for the 30 loaves of matzah. Now, how do you know that? So says the Gemara, Lamanu asar lechametz, asar lematzah menayin. How do I know that there's 10 isaron for matzah as well? Tamalomer al chalos lechem chametz, keneged chametz haba matzah. The pasuk connects the chametz and the matzah to tell me just like the chametz is 10, so to the gzeir shava the matzah is 10 as well. Okay, so we learn that from the chametz. Beautiful. Here's the problem though. The problem is in Karbonis, we've had this a few times. You can't just do drasha to drasha to drasha. It doesn't work like that. So think about what we're doing over here. We're going shtei alechem, connection to chametz, gzeir shava shtei alechem to chametz, gzeir shava chametz to matzah. Can't do that. I'm sorry, it's actually hekish. It's not gzeir shava. It's hekish. Shtei alechem to chametz, hekish chametz to matzah. You can't do hekish to hekish, not by karbanis. Says the Gemara, v'chidavar halav mid behekish chayzim lamid behekish, a halacha that you only know from a hekish. You cannot then use a hekish to teach B. If I have A, B, C, A is the source, and then I use a hekish A to B, I can't then use a hekish B to C. And that's exactly what you're doing over here. Shtei alechem to chametz, chametz to matzah. It doesn't work. So the Gemara says it's not exactly a hekish to a hekish. I'll tell you why. What's the hekish? What's the information that we're trying to walk away from? That it's 10 isaron. And we're going hekish chametz to matzah. You said, but the problem is, you went hekish shtei halechem to chametz. The answer is not fully. What you had shtei halechem to chametz was the amount of isaron per dough. That you had, that you learned out. But how do I know that it's 10 doughs? That's not from the shtei halechem. Meaning, the concept over here is, if I were to ask you, how much flour is being used by the chametz loaves, you would say, well, it's 10 isaron, 1 for each. And I would ask you how you know that. And you would say, well, we learn out from the shtei alechem, it's 1 isaron per dough. I'd say, yeah, but how do you know it's 10? So that you'll say, because the pasuk says truma, and truma is a tenth. So the entire information that you're getting is not entirely from a hekish. It's maybe 50% hekish, but 50% for the pasuk. Maybe then it's okay. Meaning, maybe the issue is only A to B to C if it's entirely hekish to hekish. Over here, it's not entirely hekish to hekish. It's partially hekish, meaning what the information that I'm getting is that it's 10 isaron, 1 isaron per flour, per dough. The 1 isaron per dough I'm learning from a hekish, but that it's 10 doughs, that's from the pasuk. So maybe then I could connect it. Says the Gemara, it's not fully from a hekish. Only part of the information is got from the hekesh. Says the Gemara, then it's fine. Says the Gemara, that's not so pashut. It's a machlokas. There are opinions that say, I don't care whether you got some of the information from a hekesh or some of it not. You can't go hekesh to hekesh. Like, period, stop. So according to this opinion, how am I going from shtei alechem to chametz to matzah? So the Gemara responds, Tivyeu rubuyahu. The answer is there's an extra word. It's not just a hekesh. The extra word, because it's an extra word, it's not an issue. Okay, good. Now, we talked before about the toida. The toida had 4 sets of 10, 4 different loaves. One was chametz, and then 3 different types of matzah. Now, the Mishnah is going to tell us that... What? Yeah, it was part of one set of 10 chametz and 3 sets of 10 matzah. Now the different matzahs, there was called chalas, rekikin, and revucha. Chalas is wafers, loaves, rekikin are thinner wafers, and revucha means that it's scalded in water. It's like a bagel and then baked. Okay, the 3 different types of matzah. So the Mishnah tells us that when the inauguration of the Mishkan and they brought karbanos, they brought 3 out of 4, meaning the Toida had 4 sets, 3 chametz, 1 matzah. By the Meluyim, they just had 3 sets. Meaning the same procedure minus the chametz sets. Says the Mishnah, Ha-Meluyim hayuba'in kematzah shebetoida. The Meluyim karbanos, the bread of the Meluyim that they brought when they inaugurated the Mishkan, was 3 out of 4. What were the 3? Chalas, rekikin, and revucha. They brought the 3 different types of matzah, the chalas, the rekikin, and the revucha. Now, every nazir also brings bread. The nazir brings 2 out of 4. The nazir brings 2 matzahs. So the naziris was half of the taida. So he would bring 2 matzahs. Says the Mishnah, chalas or rekikin vein revucha. They would bring chalas and rekikin, but not the revucha, not the scalded bagel type. Says the Mishnah, Nimtza atzara kavin Yerushalmis shein shisha esroinim voidayin. Basically, if you do the math yesterday, let's say there was 15 kav for the chametz and 15 kav for the matzah. Now, if the taida is only bringing 2 out of 3, 2/3 of 15 is 10. So the chametz, the amount, the taida's bread was 10 kav in Yerushalmius, because basically you're taking the amount that the taida brings for the matzah alone, and this is 2/3 of that, and therefore that's the amount of dough, the amount of flour. Did you do yesterday's? Yesterday's that went through the whole flow is that there was 15 kav for the chametz, 15 kav for the matzah. Now 15 kav for the matzah, if you're bringing 3, that means 5 per category. The nazir is only bringing 2, so you bring 10 kav. That's the point. Zakt Gemara, Minani Mili, how do I know that during the Meluyim, they would bring 3 different types of matzahs. They would bring the chalas, rekikin, and the revucha. So Amr of Chizda, Amr of Chama Bar Guria, Damar Krab. Umisal hamatzas hashalit fnei Hashem, from the basket of matzahs before God, look at chalas matzah achas 1, the chalas lahem shemen achas 2, v'rakik echad 3. So it says mefurish chalas, it says mefurish rekikin, and it says lechem shemen. So that's obviously the 3rd one, which is the boiled one. It says the Gemara Bishlam chalas chalas rekik. Shemen ma'niu. What's the 3rd category? Lav revucha. It must be referring to the 3rd type of matzah, which is revucha. Says the Gemara. Maskler of Avia, Ema Ansa de Mishcha. Where do you see the word lechem shemen means a boiled bagel? Where do you see that? It just means oil. Maybe they brought congealed oil. Maybe you were supposed to congeal oil into a cake and bring that. I don't know. It just says lechem shemen, a bread of oil. I don't know how you see that that's a revucha. So it says the Gemara, you're right. Rather, the 3rd matzah is from a different source. El Kedidarish of Nachman bar of Chizda Meshmeder of Tivla. The pasuk says that this is the bread carbon that Aaron would bring on the day of his inauguration. Well, basically the pasuk is like this. The pasuk is putting in 2 different types of minchas. I told you that there was a chavitin that the Kohen Gadol would bring daily. Yeah. Also, a kohen on the first day that he serves in the Beis Hamikdash, he also brings an inauguration mincha. The pasuk puts them together to tell you, just like by the Kohen Gadol he brings the type of matzah that's boiled, the bagel type, so too by the inauguration they brought the bagel type as well. Good. Now, so I just mentioned that the Kohen Gadol every day would bring chavitin. He would bring a minchas chavitin, and every time a kohen, the first time a kohen ever serves in the Beis Hamikdash, he also brings that type of bread carbon. So it happens twice. It happens the daily of the Kohen Gadol and the first time a Kohen ever serves in the Beis Hamikdash that day. Says the Gemara, an interesting halacha, Rav Chizda, Kohen Gadol hamiskarev la'avoda. When a new Kohen Gadol is inaugurating, it's his first day as a Kohen Gadol, he brings two with him. Why? One, because of the daily chavitin of the Kohen Gadol, and number two, it's his first day as a Kohen Gadol. Inauguration. So every Kohen Gadol, the first time they're a Kohen Gadol that day, they bring two. One for the daily Kohen Gadol, and one because it's the inauguration of being a Kohen Gadol. Ha'efa, achas limashchay v'achas l'chinuchay, mar baravashi shalosh. Mar baravashi says, actually, the first day the Kohen Gadol serves, he actually brings three. The question is, why would you bring three? I get why you bring one for the daily Kohen Gadol. Two, because it's the first day serving as the Kohen Gadol. What's the third? The answer is, what if we're talking about a person that it's the first day he's a Kohen Gadol, and he's never even been a Kohen before? I was listening to the radio, so I was driving, and they were talking. I don't know, it was 2 days ago, maybe a couple days ago, that there was the Yankees were playing San Francisco, and they were talking on the radio that the manager, the general manager for the San Francisco Giants this year, he's the first manager of all time to go from the minor leagues straight to the major leagues. He never was a manager, never coached nothing in the major leagues. He went from minors to mamish, a promotion like that. So what if you have a Kohen Gadol that was never a Kohen before? They go over to him and they say, your first day, he's never served as a Kohen before, your first day you're a Kohen Gadol. So then he has to bring three. One for the daily Kohen Gadol, one because it's his first day as Kohen Gadol, and one is because it's first day as a Kohen. So that's the time where you'd have to bring three. The Gemara says, again, that would be a big promotion, but you go from nothing to never serving to mamish Kohen Gadol. But conceptually, you'd have to bring three chavitin on that day. Okay, then we mentioned that the Nazir would bring 2 out of the 4 of the Toida. He would bring the 2 matzahs. He would bring chalas and rekikin. He did not bring the revucha, and he does not bring the chametz. Tan Rabbanon, how do I know this? Because in the Toida, which brings 4 sets, it says shlamav, and shlamav is l'rabbi shalmi nazir. Shlamav is to include a halacha regarding the nazir, meaning that the Torah mentions a nazir by the Toida to tell me what? La'aseres kavin yushalm is l'rvi shemen. The pasuk is telling me, because it mentions the Nazir by the Toida, to tell me, just like the Toida brings bread offerings and it brings 2 sets, so too the Nazir also brings 2 sets. Now let me ask you a question. The Toida brings 4 sets, so maybe the Nazir should also bring all 4 sets. The Gemara says, Yachala kol mashenema be'inyan, tamaloimer matzis. No, matzis means that the Nazir doesn't bring everything the Toida brings. The Toida brings 4 sets, he brings chametz. No, dafka matzis. That the Nazir only brings the matzis. How many are the matzis? Well, there are 3 sets of matzis. My Talmuda, Amrav Papa, Davar Shnemar b'matzis, Lafukar Revuchat Le'nemar matzis. It says matzis by the Toida. So you know what the Toida brings? Now, matzis is to exclusion of chametz, so that's out. So now you're down to 3. Out of the 3 categories of the Toida, the word matzis is only found twice. So because it says matzis by the Nazir, it's to tell me the Nazir only brings 2 categories, 2 sets, the chalas and the rekikin, because those are the only 2 sets that the word matzis are found by the Toida. Another source, again, the Gemara is saying that the pasuk compares the Nazir to the Toida, but not always. The Nazir doesn't bring 4 sets. He only brings 2. How do I know? So it says matzah, so chametz is out, and it only says matzahs twice by the Toida, so those 2 are fine by the Nazir. Another source, Deber Vishmal Tana, it's a klal prat. Matzahs klal by the Nazir, chalas rekikin prat. Klalu prat in b'chlal masher b'frat. Chalas rekikin in midachrin aloy. In b'chlal masher b'frat. Whenever you have a klal and then a prat, you only bring the prat, which is those 2 categories and nothing else. All right, go to the next page. We're going to go to the next Mishnah. It's not very difficult. Now, the Toida would shech the carbon, and he would already have the 40 loaves sitting there. The second he shechted the carbon, the loaves are now holy. And all the halachas apply. Says the Mishnah, Hashoichet es ha-toida lifnim. If you shech the toida, v'lachma chutz l'choyma, and the bread is outside, Now, where is it outside? We'll see it's a machlokes in the Gemara, Rav Yechon Rish Lakish. Either it means it's outside of the Azara or it's outside of Yushalayim. But either way, it's not in the Azara. The bread is outside. The halacha is loy kiddush alechem. The bread is not holy. Meaning, the carbon does not sanctify the bread. The bread is not holy. You're not able to do the procedure. Because the bread was outside of the area, it's not kaddish. Another halacha, the bread also has to be baked by the time you shecht it. Let's say you shecht it too early and they check the oven and the bread is raw. Zak the Mishnah, shachta ad shaloi karmu paneha b'tanur. If you shecht it and the bread is not yet crusty, meaning it's raw, afilu karma kulan chutz me'echad mehen. Or 39 loaves are baked, but one of them is still raw, loy kiddush halechem, no good. So not only do you have to shecht it with the bread has to be present, the bread already has to be baked. If the bread is still raw, it does not work. We'll see from Gemara. Now, the Mishnah had said, if you shecht it and the bread is outside, I use air quotes, outside, it doesn't work. Outside of what? So it says the Gemara, Rav Yechanan says, outside the walls of Beis Pagi, outside of Yerushalayim. Meaning, as long as it's within Yerushalayim, you're fine. If it's outside of Yerushalayim, it's a problem. Rish Lakish disagrees. He says, no, chutz l'choymas azara. Rish Lakish says, no, it has to be in the azara. If it's outside of the azara, no good. So according to Rav Yochanan, the bread does not have to be near you. As long as the bread, so you're in the Beis HaMikdash, shechting the carbon, as long as the bread is in Yerushalayim, mamish all the way by Migdal David, it's fine. It's a problem if it's outside of Yerushalayim. Says Rav Lakish, no, it's got to be in the azara with you. If it's outside of the azara, it's a problem. So it's a machlokes of how close does it have to be? Yeah?
This we're talking about it after it was in the oven already and baked?
Yeah. For whatever reason, they took it outside. They said, "Where's the bread?" They said, "Oh, I shipped it to Beit Shemesh." Then it's no good. So according to Rav Yechanan, it does not have to be near you. According to Rav Yechanan, as long as it's within Yerushalayim, it's fine. According to Rish Lakish, it has to be in the Azar itself. Says the Gemara, Rish Lakish savar chutz l'choymas Azar. Rish Lakish says it has to be in the Azara, be'inan al b'samach. Because it says al. Al means that the bread has to be samach, right there. Al means on top of you, meaning right near you. Rav Yechon Amar chutz l'choymas v'svagi av chutz l'Azara kadosh v'loy be'inan al b'samach. Rav Yechon doesn't darshan al to mean that it has to be near you. As long as it's within Yerushalayim, you're fine. Here's the thing though. They had a similar machlokes once before. There's a special halacha, right? We're coming up on Erev Pesach. It's always nice when the daf intersects reality. And that is Erev Pesach, one of the halachas is that if you're shechting the carbon, you're bringing the carbon Pesach, and you own chametz, it says, le'sishchetu alav, chametz dam zevchi, right? That there's an iser deraisa of shechting the carbon if you have chametz. Let me ask you a question. Where is the chametz? Same machlokes of Rav Yechon Rish Lakish. According to Rish Lakish, the chametz has to be in the azara with you to be over the lav. According to Rav Yechon, as long as the chametz is in your house, it's a problem. So it's the same machlokes again. Does it have to be near you, or does it not have to be near you? So the question: why do they have to repeat themselves? It's the same machlokes. By the toida, does the bread have to be near you or not? By chametz, is the isser near you or not? It's the same thing. So the Gemara says, but don't they already argue about this once regarding chametz? If you shech the carbon pesach while owning chametz, over lav. Rav Yudamer afa tamid. Rav Yudah says the tamid as well. By the way, the tamid even of that day, you're not allowed to have chametz. Now, v'amar Rish Lakish lo'olam menichayiv achi oil shaychit oil zarich oil echem nehabura ima bazara. According to Rish Lakish, you're over lav. If any of the kaihanim or any of the people involved in the procedure have chametz in the azara, you have to have it in the azara mamish. The same way Rish Lakish says you have to have the bread of the toida in the azara. He also says that the isser of chametz has to be in the azara as well. Rav Yechon says no, af misheni my bazara. Rav Yechon says no, as long as it doesn't have to be in the azara, wherever it is, it's going to be a problem. If you own it in your house, it's a problem. So the question is, why do they have to repeat the machlokes twice? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. They're not related at all. The isser of chametz, I could look at it as just as long as you own chametz, it doesn't have to be with you. The toida is makdish the bread. It's more of a svara that the bread should have to be in the azara because the carbon is makdish the bread. When you shech the carbon, that instills kedusha into the bread. There's more of an argument that the bread should actually be with you. As opposed to chametz, it's like the Torah says don't own chametz when you shech the carbon pesach. I actually think in that case, maybe everyone would agree that it's a problem if it's in your house. Who says it has to be in the Azara? There's more of a svara to say that it has to be in the Azara by the Torah, and therefore you need both of them to tell you no. The same way they argue by the Taida, they argue by Pesach as well. The Gemara says, "Tzricha, if Marbahabi come Rav Yechanan, the Chol Heicha de Isa Bisurakai, Avle Inin Mikdash Lachem Emo Moedel Shlakish, the Isa Bifnim Kaddish Ibrahim Kaddish, the Marbaha Bahakam Reish Lakish, Abachi Moedel Rav Yechanan, Tzricha." Good. Tani Kavas Rav Yechanan. We have a brayso back to Rav Yechanan that doesn't have to be near you, as long as it's within Yerushalayim, because the brayso says Hashaychet is Hataida Lefnim. If you shech the carbon Taida, the Lachma Chutz Lechoimes Beis Pagi, and the bread is outside of Yerushalayim, Loi Kiddush Alechem. So you see a brayso mefurish that it follows Rav Yechanan. Good. Now, another halacha we said is that the bread has to be crusty and finished by the time you shech the carbon taida. Minan Emili, how do I know this? The Tan Rabbana, and the pasuk says, "Al chalois lechem chametz yakriv karbonai al zevach." That with the loaves of the bread you shech the carbon. That there's a connection. What's the pshat? We're going to go through each word. We're going to darshan. Number one, it's only kaddish if the bread is already baked. It's only considered bread if it's baked. So it says they have to have bread there for it to be kaddish, which means that the bread has to be baked. If the bread is still raw, it's not kaddish. Number two, yakriv karbonai al zevach, kaddish ela b'shchitas zevach. That the lechem is only kaddish with the shechting of the carbon pesach, of the carbon taida. Zevach toida, melamishim shachat shaloi l'shma l'kiddush alechem. We also say that it has to be a kosher shchita. If I shecht shaloi l'shma, it doesn't mekadosh the bread because it wasn't a kosher shchita. Therefore, it's not mekadosh the bread. Tan Rabban in a similar brayso, yoitzin b'matzah na u'b'matzah hasuya be'ilfis. That you could have for Pesach, you could be yoitza with matzah na. Matzah na means bread that's not fully baked. You ever have it sometimes where there's like a dough and you cut the challah and it's like a little under? Let's say I have matzah. You have to remember, their matzah is not like our matzah. Their matzah is like Svaidish matzah. You take it and it's like a lafa and it's a little under. It's underbaked. Yoitza for Pesach. Uba matzah oisa be'ilfis. Or a matzah that's baked in a pan. I mean, it's not baked directly in the oven, on the walls of the oven. It's baked in a pan. Yoitza. My matzah, no, what does it mean partially baked? Because I'll tell you like this. If you show up on the Leil Seder with a Svaidish matzah that's raw mamish, like a dough, not yaitza, partially baked is fine. What's the definition of partially baked? How do I know if it's partially baked? It says the Gemara, I'll tell you like this. If I separate the matzah and it's stringy, that's raw. That the dough is stringy like gum, that's raw. If I separate it and it doesn't create strings, even if it's under, that's fine. So that's the Geder Hadvarim. Yeah, similar. The point is like this. Sometimes you cut challah and it's a little under, and then sometimes it's raw. The way you can tell is if you pull it and it's a dough, it's raw. If it doesn't pull it, it snaps. Then it's not raw. Amar Rava. Now this is all about matzah and Pesach. Amar Rava v'chein le'ini lachmei toida. The same halacha applies for lachmei toida. If it's partially baked, but it doesn't create strings when you pull it apart, then it's considered baked for halacha. And the shchita of the carbon is magdishit. So says the Gemara, pshita, of course. Why would I think that the laws of Pesach would be any different? Meaning, if it's considered baked for Pesach, it's considered baked for lachem toida. It's pasha. Why not? It says lechem here and it says lechem there. So why would I think it's different? So the Gemara says, "Mad to say ma'echad amarachmana shalitul parus v'kamad prisadami kamashilon." I'll tell you the chiddush. The halacha is that the bread has to be one. You can't cut a slice for the kohen. That implies that the bread has to be like solid. So maybe even if it doesn't create a string, so it's considered baked for matzah, but maybe for the lachmei toida it's considered underdone. That's considered not echad. Echad means that it has to be finished, a solid unit. Even if it's considered baked for matzah, I would say maybe for Talmud we're more machmer kamash malon. No, the Geder Advarim is the same. It's mar. Just to finish up to the Mishnah, Toida sheshachta al shmeinim chalas. Oh, we've had this before. You're supposed to be magdish 40 bread. Let's say I show up to the Beis HaMikdash with 80 loaves, and the kohen is sheichet. So says the Gemara, it's a machlokes. Chizkiya amar kadshu arba matay shmeinim. Chizkiya said 40 out of the 80 are holy, meaning it works. Just take the 40 that you want and say these are holy and the rest are not. But it works. Rav Yechon amar loy kidshu arba matay shmeinim. Rav Yechon says no, it doesn't work. You bring 80, you got nothing. If you bring 80 loaves, you're not yaitz at all because you had to bring 40. You bring too much, it doesn't work. So Rav Zera. What do you mean? Because you brought 80. It doesn't work. The Kedusha was not chal. You don't know which 40 to land on, so it landed on nothing. Rav Zera explains. The machlokes is much more limited. If you show up with 80 and you say, I only want 40 to be holy, and 40 are backups. Now, you didn't mention which are backups, which are not, but it's clear you don't want 80 to be holy. You're not an idiot. You want 40 to be holy, but you're nervous. You're OCD, so you brought 40 as backups. Then everyone agrees it works. Because it's clear that you only wanted 40 to be holy. That everyone, Kuli Alma, it works. And if you say the opposite case, you show up and you say, I want all 80 to be holy. It's 80 or nothing, then like cut you that it's nothing. That everyone agrees it's nothing. Ki pligi b'stama, the case is, the machlekes is where you showed up and you didn't clarify what you meant. If you say you only want 40 to be holy, it works. If you say I want all 80 to be holy, it doesn't work. The machlekes is, I showed up stam. I didn't say what I wanted. Mar savai lachrayis kamachavin. The Rabbi Chizkiah holds the fact that you brought 80 just means that you have 40 as backups, but you obviously want it to work, so then it works. And it was this Rav Yechon, and Rav Yechon says, no, if you brought 80, maybe you wanted 80 to be Kaddish, and therefore it doesn't work. Abaya Omar, a slightly different version of the machlokes. No, the Kuli Amle Carbon Gadol Kamechaven. Everyone agrees that if you bring 80 and you don't clarify, we assume that it's an issue. And you wanted 80 to be Kaddish, and it should not work. So what's the machlokes about? Meaning, everyone agrees that you wanted to have 80. That's your kavana. So what's the machlokes? Kli shar is mekadshin shaloi medas kemiflagi. Your das was trash. You showed up with 80, you wanted 80 to be holy. So your das is garbage. Your das did not work. So why would Chizkiah say it's kaddish? I'll tell you why. Chizkiah holds the kli sharis is mekadesh shaloi midas. Meaning, Chizkiah believes that the kli sharis is able to be mekadesh even when human intellect fails us. You showed up with 80. So if you would have just said 40, great, but you showed up with 80. So your das was in the toilet, gone. You're not mekadesh with your das. But Chizkiah still says it works. Why? Because the klisharis is mekadesh shalei medas. The klisharis will mekadesh it even when you're not thinking properly. The Beis Hamikdash is thinking properly. Umar saver klisharis mekadesh shalei medas, mekadesh shalei medas. So machlokes is pasha whether the klisharis will basically fix up your mistakes. One more version of it. Rav Papa Amar the Kuli Amak Klisharis Mekadesh Lemidas. Rav Papa says in general the Klisharis is Mekadesh Lemidas according to everybody. V'hacha b'sakin kamiflagi. Over here it's different. What makes the bread holy is the shchita of the tamid. If it was a kli, you put it in the kli and the kli made it holy. The kli would make it holy always. Over here, what makes it holy is the shchita. The shaila is, the knife is not as much of a klisharis, it's more of a quick movement. The shaila is whether the knife is mekadesh shalom medas. Because the knife doesn't have a vessel, it doesn't have that ability to concentrate without das. And Ikadamri, a slight different version of that. Everyone agrees that a klisharis is only mekadesh midas. Over here, the machlokes is a knife. One opinion holds that this it's like a klisharis. And one say a knife is not mekadesh shalom midas, but a regular klisharis would be. I will stop here. Pick up tomorrow.